Welcome to Living Martial Arts with Master Ray Gale, aka the Dark Master. Living Martial Arts discusses and examines the everyday exercise, philosophy, and lifestyle of the martial arts enthusiast. The host talks about his own training, past and present, and he also interviews many martial artists to discover how they continue to live their own martial arts journey. Tune in for top tips on how to get the best out of your martial art. Or perhaps you're thinking of starting a martial art. This podcast offers you an easy way to dip your toe in. Sign up for the newsletter at livingmartialarts.com and get regular updates and training tips direct to your inbox. Follow the Dark Master on Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at Living Martial Arts.
Hello and welcome to the Living Martial Arts podcast with me, the Dark Master. I'm looking forward to talking today with one of my previous guests on a really, really interesting subject. This is a new subject that I'm looking at, and it's called the mindset of a competitor or a martial artist that competes, and just talking about the that type of thing, really. So, thankfully, I have a very inspirational Sally Gleaves with me today. I've done a podcast with Sally in the past. She runs her own martial arts schools. Not only that, she's very, very involved with coaching other martial arts instructors. Very involved again with safeguarding and promoting child safeguarding within the martial arts. And I'm really, really pleased to have her back on my podcast. So how are you, Sally?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Excellent. I'm really, really good. Thank you very much for once again agreeing to come onto my podcast and just talk about this important subject, which actually I don't think it gets much sort of airtime anywhere in martial arts. We all sort of, I think, take certain parts of this for granted, but we're going to be talking about a martial arts mindset and how that can be a good thing, and maybe sometimes the negative side of that as well. So, yeah, without further ado, first of all, how do you see the martial arts mindset? How does it differ in the sense that when students come in and they start to develop their martial arts, and how does their mindset then start to change?
So I think for me, I'm going to go right back to when I first started martial arts on this one. So when I first started martial arts, I was put in because my parents didn't want me to get bullied. I was being bullied at school. I was lacking in confidence, but also a lot of self-esteem, and maybe a little bit of discipline as well. I'm not going to lie, I was a bit of a wild little child. And I went very quickly from a beginner that really didn't talk masses, but still a little bit, crazy at home perhaps, to someone that was very disciplined, very much more confident in myself. I had a lot more self-esteem. And that took years. It wasn't just something that happened overnight. That mindset didn't just change. Like I got a white belt and then I was a yellow stripe and then suddenly I had this mindset. It was a long time of positive influence, mostly from my mom, helping me with the mindset, helping me when I overcame challenges that I was finding particularly hard, helping me with a lot of positive praise, with my self-esteem, because I didn't really think I was very good at it when I was younger. Started entering some competitions around yellow belt, had a bit of a knock, probably around green belt, and then didn't re-enter again until black stripe. So my mum was the one that was helping me with that mindset. I believe that the discipline around martial arts is really important for consistency in that mindset, but you have to have the right coach to do that, which isn't always necessarily what happens. Unfortunately, sometimes you just don't click with your coach. Sometimes they're actually just not a good coach. Sometimes they're a great coach, but again, they haven't maybe picked up on how you learn or how you tick as a person. So for me, I think when I'm coaching with my guys, I'm very, very conscious of the type of person they are, which is great for me because I've been in education education for a number of years, and I've done a lot of training around how to effectively communicate with people, how to learn about them, how to learn their learning styles, how to learn how they respond to challenge and change and, that kind of stuff. So for me, it's really important when an athlete or a beginner or anyone comes to me to build that rapport so that I can learn how to support their mindset as they're going forwards. In all fairness, I think I'm much better at supporting other people's mindsets and their progression better than actually managing my own, because mine is not brilliant. Actually, I think my mindset's kind of sometimes like quite negative. So I'm there going to my students like, yes, like, let's work on that growth mindset. Let's get you out your comfort zone, and I'm there staying in my comfort zone. So yeah, it's great. It's on both sides, because obviously I'm an athlete as well, and I compete and I represent the England national team, and I'm letting my students see that process. I'm letting them see my progress and being very vulnerable with them. So I'm saying, no, well, actually, at this moment in time, my mental health's shocking, and this is why that competition didn't go very well. Or like at the moment, my mental health's really good, and I'm feeling quite positive about myself. I feel like I actually deserve to be here. The imposter syndrome's gone, and this is how that's impacted that. So it's like leading by example, but there's so many things that factor into a student's mindset from day one to black belt to international competitor. So yeah.
Excellent. No, well, there are a couple of things there that you said that resonated with me. The first one was your mother, actually, and my mother was huge in my mindset. Not just through martial arts, but as a young lad, she instilled me with very, very positive words and actions, and told me, and consistently told me how good I could be if I did this, and how good I was, and things like that. So I think that's really, really important. And I can say that when I started martial arts, I did have a very strong belief in myself in certain ways, because of my mother and the things that she'd sort of in that work ethic that she'd instilled in me. That was the first thing. The second thing that I took from what you said there was that it's really interesting that when we have these martial arts classes, and it took me a number of years as an instructor to realize this, that all children were different, and they needed different kind of words. They needed to be, some were motivated by different methods. That, it wasn't this one size fits all approach. And once I realized that, I was a much better instructor, teacher, coach, and so on. And I found I actually then got more out of my students just by treating them as individuals, and not seeing them as, right, everybody's going to do this and this works for everyone. Well, actually, no, it doesn't. It doesn't work for everyone. So, sort of building on what you just said there regarding that individual approach. What sort of things? I don't know if there's anything you can pinpoint particularly with sort of individuals that you've used for one type of, because we all get introverts in our class and we all get extroverts, and you've got to treat them differently. So I don't know if there's anything you can point to on that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, individualized learning plan is something that's quite important. And also buy-in from the parent as well. So as a school, we're very, very committed to the under 10s parents need to remain in the room. We don't allow the parents to leave. They need to have that like investment in us as a school. They need to see the progress of the child. They're the biggest supporter. So a lot of the individual learning that takes place at the young, like grassroots stage when they first join, it involves the parent quite heavily. So when we have gradings, for example, we have a sheet on the back of their feedback. So they have a feedback sheet where we write down what they do, and then we have the feedback sheet, and the back of the sheet we have a goals sheet. So that person or that child can identify any goals off the feedback that they want to progress in between the grading periods. And the parent is normally there for that conversation, or they will support their child in formulating these SMART goals. So they understand it's a SMART goal, they understand it has to target a date, has to be achievable, all of the things that you would imagine from a SMART goal. And the parent learns that skill with their child as well. So they learn that skill at a young age, so that when they get to maybe school or high school or whatever, and then they go, right, now we can start, as you're older, setting some SMART goals, like not just in Taekwondo, but in their education or life or whatever as well. So it's a really good skill set, not only for the athlete or the child or whatever to learn, it's a good skill set for the parent as well. So I find the individual learning really, I like the idea and the challenge of creating new things and being adaptable as a coach. So for us during lockdown, we probably had like the most extensive period of our creativity as a school when it comes to supporting different learners and the different ways that they might take on information and whatnot. And during that period of time, we made a lot of resources for students that are maybe more like, kinesthetic learners or read write learners, or they may be more audio or visual or whatever. So we made we've got an e-learning, we call it the e-dojang, on our webpage, and it has various different resources for every type of learner, so that they can go home and practice, or they can come to us with a question that they may have found if they're on the webpage. There's quizzes, there's information videos. We have a place where they can upload videos of themselves performing, and I can feedback on it. So there's that kind of digital access that obviously, like back in our day, we never had that. So, it's a great resource, and it makes it really blended in their learning. So they can learn online at home, and then also in the dojang as well. In the dojang, obviously, it's a bit of a different situation, because our average beginner class size is like hitting like 40 people at the moment. And we do have a number of coaches, which is great, because obviously, like, we've trained junior instructors who are like 10 years old. So they come in, they learn very basic learning styles, they learn very basic communication skills, they learn actually very basic safeguarding, in the realms of, like, if someone looks sad, come and talk to us, because they might be having a hard time, or go and talk to them and include them in, they might be having a hard time. So they understand the very basics of all of the safeguarding, all of the health and safety they understand as well. They are like infinitely my floor checkers, making sure there's nothing on there that shouldn't be. And they've come in with another amazing start there, because they've learned all these skills, and they now know how they learn at 10 years old. So they can go into their SATs and understand how to revise for how they learn. And then they can teach that. They can teach according to that. So they will figure out, well, actually, that person right there who I'm supporting, who Sally's asked me to mentor for this session, is someone that learns if I show them. Or actually, this person learns because I'm telling them a list of things to do. This person's learning because I'm moving their hand into the right position multiple times. So they learn those basic skills. Obviously, my coaches are fully coaching qualified, so they know those skills anyway, and they've learned those over the years of teaching themselves. So they can go into a small group of learners, which we tend to split them off into, and they can really drill down into, like, that person learns that way, that person learns that way, and then they can signpost them to the digital elements that we have as well. But then obviously we also signpost them to podcasts and different Instagram pages that they can follow for various different types of thing as well. And I think all of that combines really tailors a learning experience in their martial arts that I definitely never had when I was that age. So they're well ahead of me already, which is great.
Yeah. Well, it is, isn't it? And it makes for a real learning environment that encompasses all parts of your learning. It's just not about learning a movement, but learning how to handle things mentally and deal with challenges, which is I mean, to be honest, you have to have that, and sometimes you don't realize that until it's too late. But again, just coming back to a couple of things there. The first thing is that I still hear about martial arts schools who don't allow parents in the room, and I think that Well, I won't comment on here about that, but I don't think that's right. I think parents do need to be invested in their children's learning. Otherwise, it just becomes a very expensive nursery where people
Yes, I agree.
just drop them off. And I remember many moons ago writing a letter to parents saying that if you know more about the I don't know, EastEnders than you do about your child's taekwondo, you're not doing it right. So that had an interesting response
I don't doubt that.
from a number of different people, but that's the way I played it in these days. I wasn't particularly subtle. Well, I'm not particularly subtle now, actually, but there we go.
Yeah, I don't think I am either. But I have to say, like, the parents that we have here, they are really amazing parents, and they support their children fully. And I think, again, the reason we ask parents to stay, in our classes is purely for safeguarding reasons.
Sure.
We want them to be there if their child gets hurt, they're on hand and whatnot. But it does give them such a unique opportunity, which maybe they don't get when they drop them at other sport or other clubs, just to watch their child flourish in an environment that, is supportive, it's safe, but also very positive for their progress, very positive with the role models they have. Even children that are 2-3 years older than them are role modeling, and then they can say, actually, that might be my child in the future, that will be my child actually in the future. I know that this is going to happen at this school. And they invest so much more in your club and so much more in you as a coach or you as an individual than not. And I think the wisest thing we've ever done for our club was actually saying, like, parents, you can't do a drop and run here. When they're 10, over 10, yeah, they can do a drop off and, they can come back later on. But we tend to find that those parents actually now stay around anyway, because they enjoy the sessions. And I think they enjoy the banter of our school, because our school is it's a little, I don't know, I think it's somewhat different to quite a lot of martial arts schools, but we're like a family. And I know a lot of martial arts schools are like a family, but our family definitely overshares things.
Yeah.
We definitely overshare things that we probably don't need to know, but the parents love the banter, so they do sit and they do have a bit of a giggle. I think they love watching their children fail actually and get back up again and continue, and love watching me go, right, you fell over, okay, get on with it, you're fine. Like, you're not injured, okay, your pride might be a little bit battered, but you can get back up and you're going to carry on, because that's what we do here. And I think they love that. So I definitely am a big advocate for parents sticking around. My mum definitely, she stayed in watching me right up until I was probably like around 16, which I think like some of my teenagers would absolutely be horrified at. Like, but she watched me falling over multiple times and laughed it off with me. And, I think she just really enjoyed watching that process. And the funny thing is, like, I'm 36 now. And my mum still comes to my classes. She still sits at the side and she still supports from the side. And the parents go over to her and they're like, oh, which one's yours, kind of thing. And she's like, that one. Which is like, and it's quite funny, but she's still great. She's still here, and she's still like, she volunteers at the club and gives a hand with the parents if they've got questions and stuff like that. But actually, mostly it's like she will come and she will support, like, me, or she'll support the junior instructors coming on the mats, or she will chat with the parents, and she'll laugh at me because, like, sometimes when a child does something, apparently I've adopted her very motherly sense, which is to kind of mostly like laugh it off with them and kind of have some banter and be like, yeah, you're fine. Oh, okay, you kind of injured yourself. Here's a hug. Off you go. And that was very much how she was when I was a kid. So I think, even now, like in my late 30s, she's still my biggest supporter and biggest, you're amazing at this. You're good at this type of person. So, and she's here all the time. Yeah. So it's amazing. The parents are, very, very influential in their kids' progress. And
which is great. And again, just throwing this one at you. I found sometimes with some of the kids that I taught and I teach and so on, that actually what I need to do before I work on the child's mindset is work on the parent's mindset, and actually say to them, this is what I want you to, I might hear them say something that I see as negative to the child. Oh, they're not very good at that, or or I don't think they'll ever be able to do that. He said, well, I don't want you to instill that type of thought pattern into them. What I want you to do is be more positive with them and tell them actually that you will be able to. Because a lot of the times when I'm, if I have a child, for example, with quite a negative mindset, and we're doing a technique, and they say, "Oh, I don't think I can do it, sir," and I will say to them, "Do you think I could do it the first time I tried it?" And they go, "No." What about a second time? No. Well, I get them to think about this. And listen, I wasn't born like this, and the first time I did this technique, it's tough, and it's tough for everyone. And trying to get them to say that it's okay to fail. Most people actually, when they first try and do something, they fail at it. And eventually they get better at it and they work at it and so on. But sorry, going back to my point, it's almost sort of teaching the parents to have a more positive mindset with their kids before you can almost get to the kids. And if you can solve that, getting the positive mindset to the parent, then it almost works seamlessly without having to think about it.
That's very true.
Because you can instill it in them. I often find myself, and I don't know whether you do this, I often find myself when I'm teaching the class and the parents are watching, although I'm teaching the kids, I'm actually teaching the parents. I'm saying things I want the parents to hear, that actually they're going to repeat to their children. I don't know if you go on.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's also really important for any coach to have an amazing rapport with the parents. And it's something that, again, I teach on my level 2 coaching qualification, is that like parents and spectators are, they're a valuable tool, not only in the progress of a child, but also in the progress of what you're trying to build in your community. Here, those parents could be going on to help volunteer, in your club. They could be going on to help volunteer, just getting another child maybe that hasn't got the capacity or the capability to get to competition. Those parents might offer them a lift. It's really, really important to have that rapport, and it's really important to have those conversations with the parents, themselves. Like some of my parents actually have sat in on the junior instructor courses themselves. Because their kids are there, and again through safeguarding, if they're young kids, they're there, and they're actually going, I didn't realize that I can speak like and communicate this way. I didn't understand that those learning styles were there. And then, as a school, we're quite open about pretty much everything here. Actually, this is what I mean.
Yeah.
we're very, very different. The parents know everything. We're transparent with everything that we do, and even the language that we use, with the athletes, they're quite clear with it. Sometimes we do have to give the kids a bit of a kick up the butt. And sometimes the language is very different there, but it's always done as positively as we can, because, I think one of the things that parents always like about me is when the kids come in, they go, "Oh, I hate doing that." And I'm like, yeah, well, in life, sometimes you got to do things you hate, and you do it and you get through it, and then you learn. And I know that, again, is quite a harsh way of saying things, but sometimes that's what they need. And I'm very, again, I've been brought up that way, and it has helped me immensely with mindset. I've overcome challenges, and I've hated doing it. I think I hated doing my master's, my master's degree. I absolutely hated it. And my mum was very much there in the background again going, "I know you hate it, but you got to see this through now. You got to see this through. And I know you don't like it. And sometimes in life it sucks, but you got to go. You got to keep pushing through it." And it's very much like that, but at that more simple level of, okay, yeah, you hate burpees. Well, if there's only 10, you can manage. You're fine.
Yeah. Well, I agree with lots of things there. And one of the things that I use, particularly when I'm teaching the instructors courses, I use a line called "kiss them before you kick them." And the fact that they say, "Well, okay, you're doing this really well, but actually you need to improve in this area." So I have a bit of a balance between it's not just negative. Actually, there are some good things here, but we do really need to work on this. So which is like I call kiss them before you kick them. And
that's definitely not what I used to call it when I was teaching back in the day. I'm sure you can imagine what that kind of phrasing was, but I prefer your phrasing. I think it's much kinder.
Probably the same as me. And it's really important as a, and I want to say this to all the martial arts teachers or teachers of any kind out there listening to this, is that you can build someone with one line, but you can also destroy someone with one line. And I remember going back when I was a green belt, somebody said something to me which was really, really nice, and it was somebody that I looked up to, and it spurred me on. It took me to black belt. It really did. It really made a massive difference. I told this person this as well, and they said, "Oh," and I said, "No, it did," because growing up in the 60s as a black kid, I had a lot of negative being thrown at me. So just somebody saying, actually, you're going to be really good at this, or I thought, wow, this person believes in me, made a huge difference to me. And I'm, just saying this really to all the martial arts teachers out there and the teachers of, what we do is just be careful and choose your words carefully.
Yeah, coaches, they do have so much power and so much influence over not just a child's life, but an adult's life. And a black belt of mine that no longer trains with me, he's very recently said that words mean nothing to him. Words mean nothing. And I was there thinking, no, words mean everything. You cannot put any more weight on that. Words mean everything. And in the past I have had words said to me, just probably not even thought about, probably not even crossed their mind that this would have an impact. But from a coaching point of view, I've had words in the past that have really damaged self-esteem and have really damaged me competitively. Like even now I'm still suffering the after effects of in some ways very poor coaching. And I still get on the ring and don't feel like I belong there. I don't feel like I'm good enough to be there. And that's purely based from the fact that, during my very beginner years in martial arts, I wasn't coached effectively. And actually I was quite good. Like it's taken years for me to look back and go, actually I was quite good at that. I wasn't crap. Like I was winning gold. Why did I stop?
Yeah.
And it was one word. That was all it was. It made me stop. And it was my mum's multiple words and resilience and battering me to get back in and do it again at Black Stripe. But by then I'd lost valuable experience, and that's the other thing. It's you have to keep going with things like competition and gradings and stuff like that, even if you've had a knock, because you miss so many unique opportunities to get feedback from coaches. You've missed unique learning opportunities in yourself. Words mean everything. Words mean everything.
Yeah, they do, and it's really, really important. But sort of going back one step before I move on to a slightly different, well, the same subject but in a slightly different way. But and again, I mean, I've always been a keen sports person. I've always been very, very keen, and I actually started playing football from the age of 8. I was sort of in the Cub Scouts team, and then I got into a really good team, and eventually I played county level football. And I played right up until I was playing a lot of football, even when I was doing taekwondo. It came to a point where I thought, well, I've got to make a choice here, because the two were miles apart in the end. But I played quite a good standard up until my early 20s. And the only one thing that I would have loved is my dad to have come and watched me. He watched me one afternoon playing football in all those years, and that was only because the football pitch backed onto one of our my uncle that he was visiting, so he only had to sort of pop out the gate. And I tell you that if my mum hadn't instilled such a strong mindset, that would have crippled me. It really would have done. And I was very jealous. I used to see a lot of the kids on the side. Their mums and dads were there, and the dads particularly. Mine was never there. And I've often told this story to other people that I write a lot of poetry. I love poetry. And I first started when my eldest son, he was playing a game of football. And I vowed that I would never let my kids go there without me being there. And my son scored a goal and he ran towards me with his hands up. And he was obviously elated. And I just started to cry. I went back home and I wrote a poem called Once I Was You. And I've been writing poetry ever since. But just that moment as he turned, I just knew how he felt. Because of how I felt when I turned my poster. I was just, and I used to break speed limits to go watch my kids compete in different things, because I just wanted to be there to see them. So when they turned around, they knew I was there. And I said to my kids, listen, if you're on a Tiddlywinks competition, I'm coming.
I love that. That's beautiful.
So that was it. But changing that from that little story, I competed in Taekwondo and I was, I did okay. But one thing that perhaps you could, throw some light on is the negative side of that mindset, because I got to a point where competing was the only thing. My mindset was, and everything else suffered. My relationships suffered. In the end, although yes, I was just saying I was going to see my kids, but even my relationship early on, because I thought, I've got to train, I've got to get to this level, I've got to stay at the top, I've got to, I'm British champion, so people are going to be, and that's my mindset was such that I was very, very blinkered for a number of years, and consequently, when I gave up competing, it did affect me mentally. I did go into some depression, but I didn't realize it. So I don't know, perhaps you could comment on that side of it.
So I have multiple ways I can comment on that. Very similar, if I'm honest with you. So for me, I've only really just gotten back into competitive Taekwondo since just after lockdown. So during lockdown, I went through a stage of like, I'm going to quit Taekwondo. I'm not very good at it. I feel like being a coach all the time has really damaged me personally as a martial artist. So I'm probably just going to quit and then just close my business and find another school to train at and just go in as me. Just be me, Sally, not Coach Sally, marriage counselor Sally, all the things you have to do when you're an instructor. Obviously, I didn't close my club because I'm now sat here in my dojo. But yeah, I decided there's two things that I feel kind of like an external pressure on, which I've kind of done to myself, which is fine. The first thing was I wanted to track my progress from COVID to infinity, hopefully, where my Taekwondo is concerned. And I wanted to see progress of me in a year's time looking better or doing better or achieving more. So I started my Instagram page and that somehow went crazy. And now there's a different pressure there. So initially it started out as a journey of me and of my progress and of my fails and whatnot. And now it's ended up being like an influencer platform, which I wasn't anticipating. And there's the stress there of people wanting to see perfection all the time. And I'm not that kind of person. So obviously I post good stuff. And I also post the stuff where I royally cock up or fall on my arse or whatever, and that's fine. But that pressure is there now because, hundreds of girls follow it. And they expect good results every time they see me, or maybe they do, maybe they don't, maybe that's a misconception I built up in my mind. Maybe they actually love the journey and as well, maybe they're not expecting all the greatness that Instagram has to offer and real life or whatever. So that's one pressure I've put on myself, which I find has now started impacting me competitively, because I'm in that headspace of, well, I have to constantly be training and constantly doing better to constantly appease not only my self-esteem or my motivation or my ego or whatever, but I'm there thinking, if I don't succeed at this, there's a whole group of people online that are going to see me fail. And that's quite an intrusive thought. And that's quite a difficult one to overcome, because that's only something I've built up in my own head. Probably these people don't care. and this is something I always say to anyone that is like and ahhing about competing. And I say this to my students all the time. I'm like, you go in, it's for you, it's for no one else. So doesn't matter if you win or lose. I want you to go and I want you to gain the experience, and then you will win. It might take a few competitions and then you win. I'm there giving that advice, but to myself, I'm not that kind,
Yeah.
So there's that element of it. The other element of it where just more the competitive side is concerned, I really struggle with depression, and I have been for a long time. Probably just before lockdown, I really started suffering with I had PTSD. CPTSD is complex. And it's, again, from past trauma and stuff like that. But it really affects me from a self-esteem point of view, but also from a performance anxiety point of view, because of, again, poor coaching in the past. Probably a few issues around, what you said about your dad really resonates with me. There's some issues there with that. My mum was my biggest supporter because perhaps my dad wasn't. Well, he really wasn't. I'm trying to be kind. And, it impacts you when you're stepping on the ring. It impacts your nerves. It impacts my ability to believe in myself. And I did post about that recently because I did the Warrior Open. I came fourth. And I've been really struggling recently, like more so than previously. Since like December, I kind of burnt out in November time last year. And since December, I've had some various issues outside of Taekwondo that have been causing me my stress levels to be quite high. And it's caused depression really badly. And my mental health in December was very poor. And I'm gonna be transparent because I'm always transparent. I was suicidal in December. I've been suicidal in January. All of that time, I really struggled with my mental health, but I've still carried on competing because I know that that's what will pull me out of this eventually, but it doesn't make it easy. And it kind of weighs you down. Like, you're trying to get on the mat, you're trying to be really good, but you've got all of these intrusive thoughts, all this negativity there, and you're thinking, why am I so amazing at getting my students out of this, but I can't do it for myself? And it comes down to the fact that I actually don't have a specific coach doing that. I have maybe 2 or 3 really good coaches that talk to me all the time, and they're really super supportive and they're great, but they're not with me every second of the day or when I'm training, or, because they live in completely different places. So that maybe the support that I would be giving my students, I'm not getting myself. So again, I'm being kind of maybe unkind to myself here because, I haven't got that support. I have got support with my co-instructors, and, my husband's really supportive as well. And that's all great. But, sometimes when you hear the same voice saying the same thing over and over again, you kind of blinker it, right? So sometimes it's good to have that external person from your situation.
Sure.
I think for me, the first time in a long time where I felt that I really belonged on the mats and I was good enough to be there was in the European Championships in Croatia last year. So this time last year, I think that was probably the first and only time in a long while where I'd felt, actually, I deserve to be here. And I'm good enough to be here. So now it's how do you get that mindset back? And that's where my current battle is. It's not always positive in the, Instagram world. Everyone looks like they're positive and they look like they're happy, but I'm trying to be transparent about this. My students are very aware that, your instructor, isn't always happy. They're not always, that positive. Sometimes they have a bad day, sometimes they have a bad month. And we're always very open about that. And, this might be happening, but look at how much support we have here. Look at all these people that are in my corner. So we're always trying to say, ask and they will guide, and that works both ways. As an instructor, you can ask, and even your yellow belts might be able to guide. We're very open about it. I haven't been this is probably the most I've been open about how I've been recently to you. This is the first time that has gone public, especially around the suicidal thoughts. I haven't opened up about that, that with really anyone other than close friends, but it's something that I have been contemplating talking about now that I'm feeling better. because you could have someone who's the top competitor in the world, but behind the scenes they're feeling like that.
Yeah.
And how do you support that person? How do we get that help there to that person?
Yeah.
What agencies are there to help that person? In England, I worked a little bit with Sporting Minds, and they're quite low. Actually, funny enough, they were founded just up the road from where I live. They're founded in Malvern. And they were very good. And Sporting Minds is specifically for athletes who are struggling with their mental health, and they give you access to apps and various bits and bobs to help you with your mental health in the short term, maybe while you're waiting, because the NHS it's quite a long wait for mental health help.
Oh, very long.
Yeah, so it has been a very good stopgap for me, and I would recommend Sporting Minds to any of my athletes that are struggling with their mental health. And I know that several of my students suffer with various different mental health issues, and when they're having a particularly bad time, I'll just say, look, I'm not qualified to help you in this. I'm a mental health first aider, and that's great and that's fine, but at the moment I cannot physically do that myself for you, whereas in the past I could have done. Now at this moment I can't, I'm going to be honest. But this app will help you, or this contact this company, and they will guide you in that journey for the time being. And then at some point I'll be back at capacity to also lend that hand, but look at all the other support you have here. When it comes down to competitive mindset, I think my mindset is I've always been told, keep pushing through, which is great to a certain extent. And the resilience is great to a certain extent, but you have to be mindful of when you need to stop as well.
Yeah.
And at the point in November where I burnt out, I knew I had to stop. And in the past, maybe I would have continued, but now I've learned to listen to my body and to myself and know when to stop. And because I stopped, I've come back into this competitive season a little bit better, Yeah.
So definitely.
It's important. And there are loads of books out there for mindset and athletes, and there's loads of resource out there to help you. But you have to admit to yourself first that you need that help.
Yeah, definitely. No, thanks. Well, thank you very, very much for that. Thank you for, your honesty with that, because it's tough. It's tough, I've had counselling myself in the past for certain things. It's sometimes, you get to a point where you got to say to yourself, I need some help. But getting to that point can sometimes be a long haul. Now I advise people to say, look, get help as soon as you can. Don't let it go on. Don't let it go on. But perhaps we can put a link to or some information to the group that you mentioned. If you hang around afterwards, we'll perhaps I'll get some info on you, or we'll put it in the show notes or whatever. But we're coming to the end of the podcast, but I just want to say, a huge thanks. I hope that the people listening to this get something from it. In fact, I'm sure they will. In the fact that what you said, and perhaps what we've said, and maybe some of the parents that listen to this who've got youngsters that are doing martial arts will realize, actually, if they're not involved, that they need to be perhaps involved a little bit more, and help their children, not just to achieve in martial arts, but just to be safe in life. Their mental health is important, whatever they're doing. But I want to just say again a big thank you to you for your knowledge, your experience, your honesty. Thank you very, very much. And I'm sure that people will definitely get something from this. So thank you, Sally. And I'm hoping that we can talk again. And we need to. You're always welcome, to be honest, at our events. Be lovely to see you at some point, and maybe I'll try and get up your way at some point as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. You're always welcome.
be great. So if you hang there a moment, and I'll be with you. But I want to say thank you very much to the Living Martial Arts podcast fans. I'll be back with you very, very soon with another episode, another fantastic guest. Once again, thank you very, very much to Sally Gleaves for taking the time to give us her insights. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Oh, hang on.